Alrighty, TikTok, welcome in everybody. Let's go ahead and get this show on the road, shall we? And welcome in everybody to the Last Row Podcast, a fan's perspective on sports. It's Brian here inside the ARM Media Solutions studio on this Tuesday night, July the 21st, 2026. Hope you're happy, hope you're healthy, hope you're well, wherever it is you are listening, whether that is on Apple Podcasts or through Spotify. Thank you so much for being part of the program. Greatly appreciate each and every one of you here. If you are joining us tonight on TikTok Live, you can catch us there at last.row.podcast. You can also catch us on X or Twitter Live at last.row.podcast. Or excuse me, Last Row Podcast. You can also catch us on YouTube Live at Last Row Podcast as well. Hope you are all doing well. Great to have you back. Great to be back with you here for another evening of the Last Row Podcast. Let's not waste any time, shall we? Let's get right into it. So, here we go. Let's talk. Let's figure things out here as we go. And let's see exactly what we're going to talk about here tonight. Well, first and foremost, we're going to start the night off with the story of the day. And the story of the day is quite simply put, the layoffs and let's not make let's not make this anything smaller than what it is. It's a pretty big deal because right now the layoffs that are happening at ESPN are rattling the media. And they are rattling everybody within the media community. And that is because of how impactful this has been so far on the folks at ESPN and NFL Network. And the biggest name, realistically, that's out there is Tom Pelissero. Karl Ravech is another big name from ESPN who's been there 33 years. So Tom Pelissero, who is one of the really good guys on or in the, for lack of a better term, in the media world, he is absolutely one of the best guys that are out there. And quite honestly, I was shocked by it. I was disturbed by it. And look, for the people that are saying this is Pat McAfee's show's fault, that's not the case at all. ESPN has been making cuts left and right. There's a reason why Linda Cohen retired. There's a reason why, they brought back Rich Eisen. There's a reason why, they are doing the things that they're doing at ESPN. And look, let's be honest here, and let's talk about it. Realistically, this is a big deal in the media world. And the reason why it's such a big deal is because of the fact that you have veteran anchors, veteran media people that have connections all over. And they are not, for lack of a better term, look, this is not something that is going away anytime soon, okay? This is something that is realistically going to be a very big issue. And the fact that Tom Pelissero is gone and is no longer, for lack of a better term, Pelissero not being involved any longer, it truly worries me because he was one of the best at and in the business in terms of in terms of being able to have connections and being able to have guys that he is absolutely able to connect with. He with Ian Rappaport, Mike Garafolo, those guys on NFL Network together absolutely were a unique trio of guys that really made things likable, made things interesting, made things good for the NFL Network. And I was quite surprised at the fact that ESPN let them go. I was very surprised at the fact that ESPN didn't keep Pelissero on as somebody that could be a featured guest on SportsCenter, that could work as like a Chris Mortensen and or a John Clayton and or a Ed Warder type figure. That to me was very interesting. And the fact that Pelissero and those guys couldn't come to an agreement and he's been let go now at ESPN, that's a huge deal. That's a very big deal. And I for one am very sad to see Tom Pelissero go. I think Pelissero has been absolutely brilliant. I think he's been a great soldier for the NFL Network. And again, I feel like this has been a big deal for ESPN. And the fact they're keeping, Ian Rappaport, Garafolo is not part of these layoffs. Garafolo is absolutely still part of the Mike Garafolo is still a member of the crew there at the NFL Network. And again, with and because of these layoffs, I truly feel that this is it's gonna be, yeah. And Cody, you're mentioning right here in our YouTube chat, and thanks for chatting us up, man. Appreciate you. It's gonna be a big topic on our show. Catching up with Cody, if you're not familiar, he's live on YouTube. He's live on TikTok. Make sure you check him out. Okay, great cat, really good knowledge of sports. Talks Detroit up left and right. Can't wait to talk NFC North with him. We're gonna be together next Monday night on his show, and I can't wait for it. I'm excited for it. I've been really just gearing up for it, and yeah, it's going to be a huge story because look, this is in terms of the media side of it, this is a really big deal, and this is because you've got guys that, and again, we've just mentioned it here. You've got Mike Garafolo, who's still with the NFL Network and ESPN. Ian Rappaport is still there. And now you've got Tom Pelissero, who's the odd man out. And realistically, I thought they would have kept Pelissero on, again, like in a John Clayton or Ed Warder type role, and they didn't do that. And I'm not sure if it was money related, but for all of the people on social media saying, oh, this is all because of Pat McAfee and blah, no, it's not. McAfee's crew has had nothing to do with this at all. McAfee's crew, in fact, has said, look, we'll take less money to keep guys on. And realistically here, McAfee has said that he wants everybody around it. And McAfee is a guy that has very quickly, and I will say this about Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee has very quickly become a media darling with other media members. And the reason for that is because he has absolutely done a brilliant job of networking and allowing good things to happen to the people around him, but also keeping his eye on the prize, which is, of course, what all of us want to do. And I have to tell you here, it is absolutely mind-boggling to me that people are blaming Pat McAfee for this. It's absolutely mind-blowing to me that people are saying it's McAfee's fault. Pat McAfee has nothing to do with the layoffs. McAfee has nothing to do with the layoffs at ESPN. McAfee, I would say this. Good evening, Jamie. CC Lindog, good evening on TikTok. Welcome in. I would say this. McAfee has actually helped save ESPN. And what I mean by that is, and Cody, you bring it up in the YouTube chat very, very well. He has come into College Game Day on Saturdays, and he has brought in an energy to that program that we have not seen in many years. Realistically, and I think I can say this, realistically, I think it's probably been since they started going out to the college campuses in the early 2000s. When it was Desmond Howard, Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit, Lee Corso, the original four. And Pat McAfee has brought the energy that left when Lee Corso's health started deteriorating. And it's not a bad thing that McAfee's there. Now, you're bringing McAfee in for the energy. You're also bringing him in for knowledge. And truth be told, he identifies with the younger generation better than anybody at ESPN. And I don't think that's not something that they take lightly there. That's not something that they are flippant about. They know he equals ratings. The other part of that, too, with McAfee is that he brings a knowledge of football that not many people give him credit for. Owen, good evening. McAfee is a very, very smart football guy. Then you pair him with the guy who I thought would naturally replace Lee Corso just because of his football knowledge. Not his charisma, but the football side of it. And that's Nick Saban. And Nick Saban, to me, is the straw that stirs the drink there. Because he's funny, he's knowledgeable, he pulls no punches, and quite honestly, he is somebody that I could see in a massive football role at ESPN moving forward. You can't blame Pat McAfee for ESPN making massive layoffs. You just can't. It doesn't work. McAfee has been very good for that brand. McAfee has also helped broker other sporting brands being on ESPN and ESPN's app, i.e. WWE. Do you think it's a coincidence that the WWE, who had live streaming with Peacock on NBC, who had live streaming with Netflix, now has it on ESPN? I wonder how that deal got brokered. Oh, that's right. WWE and Pat McAfee have a relationship together. Business is all intertwined, folks. You see layoffs happen all of the time. Music, Brian, good evening. Glad to see everybody here tonight in TikTok land. Welcome into the Last Row podcast. We're going to hear from our good friends over at I Know a Guy Remodeling here in just a little bit, but right now we're talking about the ESPN layoffs and how big of a deal this is. Now look, let's call it out here. You've got an anchor there at ESPN, and Karl Ravech, who's been there 33 years. And those 33 years, he has been an incredible soldier for them. And you're talking an absolute number of high-named or big-named people that are being let go. Karl Ravech was one of them. Another major name, David Lloyd. David Lloyd is a very good SportsCenter anchor. A news guy who understands what is supposed to be happening and how TV works. David was one of those guys. He first came to ESPN in 97, and he started on ESPN News right after they launched. RM, good evening. Prime, hello. Anella, good evening. ABCD, good evening. Patch, Todd, good evening and welcome into the show. Scott, good evening. Adrian, hello. So another star or another name that might sound familiar to most is Charles Davis. Charles Davis was with the NFL Network. And when ESPN bought NFL Network, and look, let's call it what it is here. ESPN sensed the competition. ESPN knew that realistically, NFL Network was cutting into their coverage, and NFL Network was doing it better. So ESPN bought them. Nix, good evening. Monty, good evening. Saucy, good evening. Jigar, good evening. And when ESPN saw that, and ESPN recognized that there were guys that were going to be on there, look, I think Charles Davis would have been a phenomenal addition to ESPN's broadcasting crew, whether it was for Monday Night Football or their college football. He'd be great for them. But unfortunately, he's gone. Bart Scott, who everybody made fun of when he was with the Jets. He was a radio host and he was a studio analyst, and he was very good. Archer, good evening. Peter, good evening. B. Martin, good evening. It was absolutely a shock to see Bart Scott get let go there. Andreas Hale, who covered MMA and pro wrestling for ESPN, he was one of the ones that was let go as well. Jersey Gold, good evening. So there were a lot of big name people that were let go. One name I'm shocked, and I'll be honest with you, okay? Speaker of Truth, good evening. JB, good evening. The King is here, ladies and gentlemen. Cam Newton. He just signed a new multi-year contract. He's still with ESPN, but yet, lo and behold, you've got all these veteran anchors that are getting let go because, quite honestly, ESPN is bringing in talent that, I'm sorry, I'm not a big Cam Newton fan. I never have been. I didn't like him as a player, and I don't like him as a media guy. Mike, good evening. Ryan Clark was another one. Now, Ryan Clark has had his share of issues with ESPN and run-ins with ESPN. There's no question about it. Ryan Clark, to me, was a guy that would stir the pot up and would ultimately make things about him and would get personal in some instances. Pocket, good evening. Monty, I thought Cam was weak. I agree. I'm not a fan of Cam Newton's. I'm not a fan of his media sensibility. I'm not a fan of how he portrays himself in the media. But again, I'm not making the decisions there. Now, I will tell you this, and it's something that it's making me wonder, and it's unrelated to the ESPN side of things. But it's in the media news today. And I'm just going to bring it up because it's close to me. And what I mean by it's close to me is this. You have Odyssey, which is a major media company in the United States. And they have radio stations in all of the major markets. Well, those top Odyssey performing stations are now going to be joining Sirius XM in the fall, including 104.3 The Score out of Chicago. That, to me, is a shock. And the reason for that, and here's why. One of the principal bigwig names over at Sirius XM is a gentleman by the name of Mel Karmazin. He's been with Sirius XM for years, or he was with them for years. His son happens to run the company that owns ESPN 1000 based in Chicago. The company with whom I used to work for many years ago, 20 years ago. And I would have thought those guys at ESPN 1000 would have been brought on faster than their competition in Chicago. But that's not the case. And it's nationwide. The top performing stations, and I'm sure New York is going to have that on there. I believe it's WFAN is part of the Odyssey group of stations that are going to XM as well in the fall. I'm excited for that, but it speaks to the bigger picture here. We're seeing the bigger named conglomerates take over the little guy. In terms of the TV side of it, look, I liked NFL Network being separate from ESPN because it created competition. It created a divide. You had the people that watched ESPN, and you had the people that watched NFL Network. NFL Network, to me, is head and shoulders above what ESPN, in terms of their football coverage, has been. But now you have a brand new conglomerate of ESPN, NFL Network, and now you're seeing people losing their jobs. I will tell you this. I sincerely hope, and I don't think ESPN is foolish enough to do this, but one of the best NFL reporters out there, in my opinion, is Stacey Dales from the NFL Network. Now, she got her start at ESPN covering women's college basketball because she's a former women's college basketball player. She's a WNBA Hall of Famer, a college basketball Hall of Famer, and she has been absolutely brilliant in the transition from college athlete to analyst to now reporter, and she's one of the national reporters for NFL Network. And she's based in Chicago. She's great here in the Midwest. And would love to have her on the show. Stacey, if you ever are listening, guys, tag her, please. We'd love to have her on the show, get her perspective. But I really hope ESPN realizes what they have with her because she's very, very good. Casey, good evening. And yeah, Monty, it's a great move by SiriusXM to pick up these other these other stations that are overperforming where they are. And quite honestly, look, it's absolutely a great move by SiriusXM. I'm shocked they didn't go after the ESPN affiliate in Chicago just because of the familial ties, but maybe because of SEC regulations they couldn't do that, although SiriusXM is not regulated necessarily by the FCC. So I'm curious about that, but you know what? Hey, it's business. It's not personal. Jerry Jr., good evening. So again, we've talked about the story of the day here for a little bit of time, and again, it's the news of the day that ESPN has laid off multiple big name reporters, analysts, whatever you want to call it. They've laid them off, and quite honestly, it's a shocker. Florida Hockey, good evening. And I'm just, my heart hurts for those like Tom Pelissero. Now look, Tom Pelissero is not going to be unemployed very long. Pelissero is going to get picked up, whether it's by Fox, NBC, CBS, whomever, Amazon, whomever. Pelissero's not going to be out of a job. I think he with Mike Florio on NBC, oh my gosh, would that be a pairing? He with Jay Glazer at Fox, that would be incredible. But Pelissero, to me, was the shocker of the bunch. And I quite honestly, I feel bad for Tom, but I don't, because Tom's going to get paid. And Tom's going to get paid like he should. And with Pelissero being out of there now, that leaves a huge gap. And I'm sure ESPN's going to fill in with their people as well. But it leaves a huge gap for a guy that left his mark at NFL Network and did a phenomenal job. And he, along with Mike Garafolo and Ian Rappaport, they had a show called The Insiders. I loved it. I thought it was great. You've also got Peter Schrager and Kyle Brandt now reuniting during the football season, which I think is great. One of the moves I wasn't happy about was them canceling Good Morning Football. I thought Good Morning Football still had a great niche or niche in the market. Now, yes, when Kay Adams left, did that hurt? Absolutely. Yeah, Good Morning Football, I've heard, has been canceled. Whether or not it's true, maybe it's not true. I don't know. I had heard that, but maybe I'm wrong. Monty, you've got me second guessing myself now. So maybe it's not canceled. We'll have to see. But if it's not canceled, I apologize. Yes, and losing Schrader hurt that, absolutely. Yeah, this was from let's see here. Let me see. There was awful announcing had it 3 days ago. ESPN has decided to end the syndicated Good Morning Football overtime show from NFL Network. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe they're ending just the overtime part of it. No, ESPN has ended the syndicated version of Good Morning Football. So the syndicated program GMFB Overtime launched in August 2024, but will cease production now that NFL Network is under ESPN ownership. Okay, so it's not the actual program; it's just the syndication overtime portion of it. Okay, so look, losing Kay Adams hurt, but Peter Schrager, he and Kyle Brandt, that dynamic together, those two guys were incredible together. And now the fact that they're both under the ESPN umbrella, I love that. I think it's great. They had such a unique dynamic. I mean, their dynamic to me was as good as Keith Olbermann and Dan Patrick. If you're old enough to remember that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That dynamic between those two. Same with Stuart Scott and Rich Eisen. Both of those guys were the next coming of Olbermann and Patrick. And realistically, I think it worked. So putting Schrager and Brandt back together, I think is a great idea by ESPN, and I think it would be a really smart idea to do so. Another name I'll tell you right here and now that I do not want to see ESPN let go of is Laura Rutledge. And if Laura Rutledge gets let go, I guarantee you NBC or CBS or Fox will pick her up in a minute because she is that good. She is absolutely that good. And again, personally, I don't know anything other than what I just read. And what I can tell you is this, is that with NFL Network being bought out by ESPN, and with ESPN now making all of these cuts, and people are blaming McAfee, and it's not Pat McAfee's fault. People have to understand that business is business. It's nothing personal. It's a line from one of the greatest movies of all time. It's business. It's nothing personal. Points in the chat if you can name what movie that's from. Christian, good evening. Monty is letting it be known in the chat on TikTok that he's not a fan of Cynthia Freeland. I actually like Cynthia Freeland. I think she brings a very unique perspective with the analytics side of it, which I'm okay with because you don't really talk much in the NFL about analytics. And in terms of the point spread and the fantasy football value, I think that she brings a lot to the table. I think that's why she hasn't been let go, Monty, to be honest with you. Yeah, Christian, we'll get to some baseball thoughts here in a couple seconds. I promise you. So, ESPN, huge cuts made today. And without question, it is a a sad day. Very sad day. Yeah, I am. I am, Cody. I'm a Chicago guy. Absolutely. I did, Christian. I did. I'm waiting on Patrick Kane to sign with the Blackhawks. Mark, good evening. All right, let's talk a little baseball here. Now, we talked last night about the injury to White Sox catcher Kyle Teel, and it looked bad. It looked very bad. However, the fact that he got away with only an ankle sprain out of this. Now, look, ankle sprains are worse than breaks. Any doctor, any orthopedist will tell you that. The fact that he got out of that with only an ankle when it looked like it was the Achilles, that's a really good sign for the White Sox. That's a huge deal for them. You talk about a team that is starting to really gel. The one thing you don't want to give a very young team, and a very young team, you don't want to give them confidence. And when you give them confidence, they start having that mindset that they can do anything. And this White Sox team at this point in time, they believe they can do anything. And Will Venable has them believing that. And kudos to him. Kudos to him. And they're young. And that's the other thing, Christian. Great point. They're such a young team. And I love that. I love that for them. And I love the fact that they've got some guys on there. They've got some players, some guys. You know what I mean? They've got players that are going to be how incredibly they're so fortunate to have so many young guys under contractual control. And look, say what we want about how the White Sox have conducted business over the last 5 years. Chris Getz has come in there and really kind of shaken things up a little bit and really gotten them into a place where they are a really good young team that has confidence. They're playing well, and it's a really nice mix of guys. And you know, they had the worst record 2 years ago before Getz got there. Now that Getz is there, they're winning. And they're making all the right calls and call-ups, and they're doing everything exactly how it should be. And I will say this, and I said it at the beginning of the season. Will Venable, to me, was not a good selection for manager when they made that hire. And you know what? I was wrong. I can admit that. Venable has done a beautiful job marrying and teaching the game the right way to these young guys. And I'll tell you something right here and now. I would not be shocked if Will Venable is up for Manager of the Year in the American League. He should be if he's not. Because the way that the White Sox are playing right now, and look, they're contending for playoffs. They're in the playoffs right now if the season ends. And they're a dangerous team. And Colson Montgomery, I'm going to say this right here now. Ladies and gentlemen, across the United States, get yourself used to hearing that name, Colson Montgomery. He will be a household name very, very soon because of how good of a baseball player he is. And the fact that they didn't call him up earlier than what they did is absolutely a crime. But he has done a magnificent job of maturing, of hitting the ball to all fields. He is the complete package for that team. He is absolutely the complete package for the White Sox. Now the Cubs have some, well, they've got some work to do. There's no question about that. But they are in a position right now to continue their playoff push. And I will just say this. And Monty, I agree with you. It's got everything to do with the contractual control. It's the whole thing with Chris Bryant and how that was, manifested a couple years ago. Anyway, last night, one of the Cubs relief pitchers got hit on a line drive off his heel, injured his heel. Very upset about it. Truth be told, it didn't look good. I believe he's okay. I'm not sure if I've heard the diagnosis yet, Monty, in terms of what the injury has been called officially, but I don't know if it's a heel bruise. I don't know if it's a broken heel. I don't know if it's a contusion, whatever. So, but I know after last night he was very frustrated. A player to keep an eye on for the Cubs, and we talk about him all the time here on the show, is Pete Crow Armstrong. When he starts hitting, you see his defense tick up. When his defense starts ticking up, you see him really become a dominant player. And he made just a phenomenal catch about a half hour, 45 minutes ago against the wall in Wrigley, chasing a ball hit to left center right near the 368 sign. He was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. He's going to be a 40-40 guy very, very quickly. And I'm going to tell you right here and now, when he becomes that, it's going to be a huge deal. Huge deal for them. Durbin is better than Bregman? Yeah, I mean, Bregman's older. Bregman has always been, though, a second-half guy. And I expect that from him. I expect him to have a bounce-back season. Now, another name to watch for with the Cubs, and a guy that I think it's going to be very difficult for the Cubs to keep on the bench, is Kevin Alcantara. One of their highest-rated prospects in AAA, made a beautiful sliding grab tonight against the wall in right field. So, I'm just saying, keep an eye out for the Cubs. I think the Cubs can still come back and win this division, especially if they make some big name trades. If they make a big trade for a Tarek Skubal, you know what? I'm all in. I'm pushing my chips in on the table. I think the Cubs then go on to win the division. But if they don't make a big trade, I think they still get the wild card, despite not having their best pitchers. Because come the dog days of summer, which we're in right now, the Cubs typically start hitting home runs right around this time. And then you've got the Craig Counsell effect in September when they call it Craig-Tember. So just something to keep an eye on. Just something to keep an eye on. All right, let's take a timeout. We're going to hear from our good friends over at I Know a Guy Remodeling. And then from there, we're going to come back. We're going to start previewing the AFC East tonight. And we're going to go through all four teams and their rosters and make our predictions for the AFC East. All coming up right here on America's fan-driven sports show, where it's real fans, real talk, front row to it all, the Last Row Podcast. Do you ever walk through your home and think, man, if I could just change this one room? Maybe it's your outdated kitchen. Maybe it's the bathroom you've been putting off remodeling or renovating. Maybe you've got an unfinished basement that's just collecting dust and boxes. Well, stop dreaming about it and reach out to I Know a Guy Remodeling. They specialize in turning ideas into reality with quality craftsmanship and attention to detail. No matter the size of the project, they'll work with you every step of the way to create a space you'll actually enjoy coming home to. If you've been waiting for the right time, this is it. You can find a link to their Facebook page on our website, www.lastrowpodcast.com, because everybody deserves to know a guy. And now you do. I Know a Guy Remodeling. And welcome back in, everybody, to the Last Row Podcast, a fan's perspective on sports, where it's real fans, real talk, front row to it all, right here on America's fan-driven sports show. All right, let's talk about the AFC East. And let's talk here for a moment about the division itself. And look, I'll be honest with you. This is the Buffalo Bills division to lose this year. I'll take heat for it. That's fine. I have no issues with that. But I believe that this is Joe Brady's coming out party. He's been a very good offensive coordinator anywhere that he's been. And we're going to talk about the Bills here in just a little bit. But we're going to start with the team that I believe will be the bottom feeders of that division. And I think it's going to be the New York Jets. And I think midway through the season, you're going to see a head coaching change. And it's all because of one thing, in my opinion. Again, just my opinion. They don't have a quarterback. I'm sorry. Geno Smith is not a good NFL quarterback. Can he be serviceable? Yes. Is he better than, Geno Smith's just not good. I'm sorry, he's not. And I know he had a couple good years in Seattle in a very friendly quarterback offense under Clint Kubiak and other OCs there. But you know what? He's not a good NFL quarterback. I'm sorry, he's just not. And he's your starter. You've got Breece Hall, who every year gets hurt. Garrett Wilson, who I think is another mediocre, quote-unquote, year away from wanting out and asking out. You've got Adonai Mitchell, Omar Cooper Jr., Kenyon Sadiq, who I really liked in this draft. I thought he was the best tight end. Then you look at their offensive line, and it's nothing to write home about. It's nothing. I'm sorry, it's just not. Then you look at the defense, and I think the defense is where Aaron Glenn, who's the head coach, obviously makes his money. And you got Tavondre Sweat at the tackle, Harrison Phillips, David Onyemata. On the edge, you got Will McDonald IV and David Bailey. At the linebacker, Demario Davis, who is older. Let's not look. He's an older linebacker. Then you look at the secondary. Brandon Stevens, Nashawn Wright, who comes over from Chicago. Let's call this what it is with Nashawn Wright. He got paid a boatload of money because of how well he performed under Al Harris. Aaron Glenn is another defensive back, ladies and gents. Aaron Glenn is going to have him playing at a high level. D'Angelo Pons, you got Minka Fitzpatrick, who's another year older, and Andre Cisco. Now, one of the key additions, and Monty, you once again steal my thunder, as you always do, sir, is Frank Reich coming over as the offensive coordinator. You've got a guy that's been a head coach. You've got a guy that's been a very good offensive coordinator. My concern is that his offense is going to be too complex for Geno Smith. I think Geno Smith would be much better suited in a West Coast offense, a la Clint Kubiak. That's why I think you saw Geno Smith have a really good year with Clint Kubiak. Bippin, good evening. So the Jets, to me, are going to be at the bottom. Right above them is the Miami Dolphins, in my opinion. And I will just come straight out and say it. I think that hiring Jeff Hafley is a really bad coaching hire. Jeff Hafley got fired from Boston College, or got fired from his head coaching job in college, went on to then be a defensive coordinator, I believe it was Boston College, and then go to Green Bay and be the defensive coordinator. And quite honestly, Jeff Hafley getting this head coaching job is mind-blowing to me. Here's the reason why. Late in the season, and including one of the wild card games, you gave up a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter to a team that had no business winning that game in the Chicago Bears. I'm sorry. And I'm a diehard Bears guy. Diehard Bears fan. They had no business winning that wild card game. Green Bay outplayed them every step of the way. And the Bears were able to get stops thanks to Matt LaFleur's inept play calling, Jordan Love's inability to make the right plays, and then Jeff Hafley's defense. You look at the Dolphins, they've got Malik Willis, who, let's be honest here, has never really produced as a starter in the NFL. Malik Willis is your starting quarterback. That's not a good thing. You trade away Jalen Waddle. You bring in Malik Washington, Jalen Tolbert, Tutu Atwell. Your offense doesn't have anything great. Your offensive line isn't very good. Your defense isn't very good. Yep, Monty, I had it on Monday night, so thank you for reminding me that it's on again. And if you go back and you watch that game, the first half, look, Green Bay's defense held down an inept Chicago offense. And the Bears were only able to muster 6 points in that first half. Was it? No, maybe it was 21-3 at half. Either way. But then you look at what happened in the second half, and Green Bay's defense couldn't stop him. And it's very similar to how we talked about with the San Antonio Spurs former assistant Sean Sweeney that just got hired by the Orlando Magic as their head coach, and the Spurs blew multiple leads against the Knicks. And look, I'll be honest. A defensive coach that can't coach a defense to hold on to a lead, that worries me. And the roster that they've got right now in Miami is not good. Monty, you're right. Maybe, okay, we're going to flip-flop. Monty, I'm going to hold you personally responsible. We're going to flip-flop. I think Miami's going to be the cellar dweller, and I think that the Jets are going to be above them. Then you have the New England Patriots. And look, let's just call it as we see it here. The Patriots made the Super Bowl last year based upon a very weak schedule. And they had the right players on the opposite side of the ball getting hurt at the right time. And quite honestly, Drake May left more questions, in my opinion, than answers a year ago. Drake May, to me, is the biggest question mark next to whether or not Mike Vrabel, if Mike Vrabel sticks around. Here's how their roster shakes out, okay? Drake May at quarterback, Ramondre Stevenson at running back, Travion Henderson at running back, A.J. Brown, Romeo Doubs, Kayshon Boutte, Hunter Henry. Okay, those are your prime offensive positions. Then at left tackle, you have the guy that should be at left guard in Will Campbell. His arms are alligator arms. He's not long enough to be a tackle. I'm sorry, he's not. Elijah Vera Tucker, Jared Wilson. They lose Garrett Bradbury in a trade to Chicago. Morgan Moses then at tackle. On the defense, Christian Barmore, Harold Landry, Draymond Jones, Robert Spillane, Christian Ellis, Christian Gonzalez, Marcus Jones. Look, they brought in Kevin Byard, a veteran presence on the safety side. Defensively, they're very good. It's their offense that worries me with Drake May. I don't trust Drake May. I don't think A.J. Brown is going to be happy in New England. And I'm just going to call it out right here and now. They were punished by the NFL very subtly. And we talked about it on the NFL schedule release episode. The Patriots' schedule, their first 4 or 5, is absolutely brutal. And opening up on the road against the defending Super Bowl champions in Seattle, nonetheless, is a punishment. Monty, yes, has the story lost steam? Yes, but it's going to pick up. It will pick up again, I promise you that. Especially when the Patriots start slow. All right, gang, we're going to take a quick timeout. We will be right back here on the Last Row podcast. Stay with us. All right, everybody, welcome back into the show. I do apologize for that little unexpected leave there. I do apologize, but welcome on back into the show. Thanks to our friends over at Forever Finds, as well as I Know a Guy Remodeling, for continuing to support the show. All right, so as we were talking about Mike Vrabel, yes, this story has gone away. Yes, this story is at least died down for a little bit of time. Bippin, welcome back. However, this story is far from done, especially if the Patriots struggle, like I expect them to, out of the gate. I truly believe that this team, while they're coming off of a Super Bowl run, still is in a world of hurt in the AFC East. And that leads me to my number one team in the AFC East, and that's the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo has a very, very, very strong roster. Josh Allen, of course, we know the accolades there. We know how good of a player he is. James Cook, I think if there's an area that they could improve upon, it's that, the running game. They bring in a solid number one receiver in DJ Moore. Khalil Shakur is there. Keon Coleman. Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. You've got Dion Dawkins still there at left tackle. Corbett, McGovern, Torrance, and Brown are the tackles. So I believe you've got yourself really set up well. And then you look at the defense. Ed Oliver, Deion Walker, TJ Sanders, Greg Rousseau, Bradley Chubb, Bernard, Williams. Then at the corner, you've got Christian Benford, Maxwell Hairston, D. Alford, Cole Bishop, and then you bring in C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who brings an entirely different dynamic to that defense. And I really think he's going to be a big difference maker for that Buffalo Bills team. Any team that he has been on, he has absolutely done a phenomenal job of changing the identity and the attitude of that defense. And I will say this much. When the Chicago Bears brought him in a year ago, he was absolutely the shot in the arm that defense needed. And the Bears are going to miss him. Their biggest weakness, though, is on their defense, and it's the linebacker position. Terrell Bernard still remains their best linebacker, but he's battled injuries. Dorian Williams has been a situational player at best. And with Dorian Williams being a situational player, at best, Buffalo is weak at the linebacker position. That's an area they could have improved upon. Now, a big factor for Buffalo this year is new defensive coordinator Jim Leonhard. Jim Leonhard is a very well-respected defensive coordinator throughout the college football world. Former Wisconsin Badger, now Buffalo Bill defensive coordinator. And again, I believe that he will do a good job replacing Sean McDermott. And again, I think Joe Brady, this is his time to shine. And if he shines right, Buffalo is going to be right in the thick of the playoffs once again, as they always are. And I think Buffalo could make a run this year. I think they've got the right mix now on offense, especially with adding DJ Moore. Not saying DJ Moore is the answer by any means, but he at least gives them a great opportunity to have that number one wide receiver. So that's why I think the Buffalo Bills are the team to watch in the AFC East. There are some, including yours truly, Monty, I know you feel the same way, that think that McDermott maybe should still be there. There's an argument to be made on both sides. I truly thought that McDermott had lost the locker room in terms of his voice. I thought it was time to move on. I thought it was time to move on. And honestly, so did the Bills, and that's why they did. But again, without question, this is now Joe Brady's squad. And Joe Brady's got a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do to change the mindset of that football team. And Josh Allen is good. We know that. But is he good enough? Does he have the guys around him? And I think that's going to be a big question. Emmett, hello. Park, hello. I have to question it. I have to wonder if, in this instance here, if Josh Allen doesn't get there this year to the Super Bowl and win it, are there going to be questions regarding Josh Allen? B-Money and Jacob, good evening. Are there going to be questions regarding, is Josh Allen really the guy? He's great in the regular season, but in the playoffs, when things get tougher, does he clam up? I think it's a legitimate question, especially if they don't win this year. They battled their demons with the Kansas City Chiefs. And look, last year was their year to get in, and they weren't able to. PG and Jason, good evening. And Monty, I get where you're coming from, saying it's a big gamble hiring a young, first-time head coach for a Super Bowl contender. I agree with you. But I also think that if you're going to hire one guy to do it, it's going to be Joe Brady because he's got your most important player. He's got their ear in Josh Allen. So therefore, it makes the most sense to me. I think Buffalo wins the division. I think Buffalo is still the class of the AFC East. Now, do they go on to win a Super Bowl? I don't know. Maybe. But I will say this. I wonder if they don't get there this year, if questions are going to start to come up about Josh Allen. And I think it's warranted. I truly do. But we'll have to see how the Buffalo Bills stack up. We'll have to see how the Buffalo Bills react to the pressure that they're going to be under this season. All right. Tomorrow night, when we are back here on the show, we are going to preview the AFC North. The AFC North with the Baltimore Ravens, the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're going to preview those teams. Or excuse me, the AFC South. We've already done the North. I apologize. We're doing the AFC South. Goodness gracious, it's been so long since we've been together. The AFC South with the Titans, the Colts, the Jags, and the Texans. Could be a very interesting division this season. Just going to put that out there. I want to thank our friends over at I Know a Guy Remodeling and Forever Finds Thrift for their continued support of the program. Thank you for joining us on TikTok and TikTok Live and X Live and YouTube Live, where we are live every single night of the week. Tomorrow night we will be back here at 9 o'clock Central Standard Time for the Last Row podcast, where it's real fans, real talk, front row to it all, on America's fan-driven sports show. And we have a big announcement tomorrow night. Huge, you could say. And we're looking forward to bringing that to you and more tomorrow night, right here from the ARM Media Solutions Studios. If you're with us on TikTok, stick around. We've got the overtime coming up. If you're with us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, thank you so much for listening, for subscribing. And we will see you tomorrow, right here